Hey everyone, thanks for learning to play games. My name is Lance, and today I'm going to look at a brand new game coming to Kickstarter called Ambal Tournament. This is a new game by Salt Ring Games. It is a 2 to 4 player game that takes roughly 20 to 40 minutes to play and is a competitive game. In the game itself, the human race has come under attack by monsters and shades and evil kinds of beings and all kinds of other things that have reduced the human population and condensed them down to 5 remaining capital cities. Over the years, the capital cities have designed and developed schools of knowledge that are going to allow them to hopefully fight back and save the human race and potentially retake some of these areas that they've lost. The Ambal Tournament is designed as a festivity that brings the 5 capitals together in a friendly competition to determine their champions and to prove that their champions are worthy of the title. So in the game, players are going to be crafting 1 or more decks depending upon the mode that they've chosen to play, and they're going to do this in a number of different ways. There are 4 different schools of knowledge currently included in the game, which are the schools of fire and water magic, and the paths of assassination and swords. And the players can choose up to 2 of these paths or schools of knowledge that they can build their deck from. When they're crafting their deck, depending upon the mode that they're going to play, they're going to include a number of cards in these that they're going to tailor specifically to however their play style is. And each one of these schools of knowledge is going to focus on different types of strengths and weaknesses. Obviously, with fire magic, you're going to be very offensive, where water magic is going to be more about boosts and boons, curses, and defensive magic and healing. So each school is going to provide different ways that players are going to be able to tailor their deck to the play style of that player. And then as the expansions get added, there'll be new schools of magic or new schools of knowledge that are going to be introduced as well. So players are going to have a larger selection as time goes on as well. So some highlights for me, I really thought that the crafting ability is really interesting in this one. It really gives players a lot of flexibility in the game, and depending upon the mode that you choose to play is also going to provide some flexibility. As you're going to see later on when I talk more about them, the advanced mode is going to include 2 different decks of cards, and players will be selecting from that second deck throughout the game. They are going to have to spend some of their maximum energy to be able to do this, but it'll allow them to augment their deck and tailor it on the fly to their opponent's play style. So if you have an opponent that's very offensive, you can try to include hopefully some more defensive things if you have them, depending upon how you craft your deck to begin with. Or if you're already offensive and you want to really push the line, you can include more powerful offensive spells, including some elite cards or a elite card in your deck that'll even give you more powerful ability or attack or whatever that elite is that you've chosen. I also really like the way that the battle system is set up, where players are going to be playing their cards simultaneously and revealing them. So it's not so much of countering what your opponent is playing, because you don't know what they're playing yet until they play it. So you really have to kind of get into your opponent's head, and I love those type of games where you really are trying to analyze certain things and figuring out how your opponent's playing and really paying attention to what they're doing. So that was something that I really enjoyed with this one as well, and it allowed me to really sink my teeth into some of the games. It's a lot of fun, and it definitely has a lot of tension to it as well, which is really cool. So of course, these are just my opinions. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below as well. Let me know what you think on this, if you're looking at backing it, why or why not. And if you find these videos helpful, if you like what I do, please consider that like button, subscribe to my channel, as it really does make a big difference. I know everybody asks for it, and it's one of the easiest ways you can help support creators like me so that we can help or continue to grow and get new content to show off. And if you want to stay up to date on all my videos, also considering that bell so you get notifications anytime I release new content. So let's head to the table, and I'll show you guys what this one's all about. One of the main features of Ambal Tournament are the cards themselves, and these are going to be broken down into 4 decks for the schools of knowledge, which are water and fire magic, assassination, and sword paths. Each of these decks is going to contain 25 cards, with 4 cards being elite cards and 21 cards being common cards, and each player is going to construct their deck using 2 of these schools of knowledge, combining them in certain ways depending upon if they're playing a basic or an advanced mode game. Each of these cards is going to be providing a number of pieces of information on it, including the cost and energy the player must spend to play that card, the school the card is associated with, the skill name and skill type, with each card being associated with either attack or defense or a combination of both. And then the different types of cards are going to include spells, actions, abilities, curses, booms, and elites, with even some cards being a combination of them, such as an elite spell or a curse spell. So there's going to be a number of different ways the cards are going to be used. Some of the cards are also going to have a duration on them, which is how long they will last or the number of turns they will last. And then finally, the description or abilities the card has and how to use it. There's also 3 different conditions players are going to be encountering throughout their games potentially, which are poison, bleeding, and burning, with each of these conditions normally being a negative and will cause damage to a player at the end of their turn, but depending upon the schools of knowledge that a player is choosing to play, some of these conditions might actually be beneficial. For example, with the School of Fire Magic, burning is a condition that a player can potentially cast on themselves and will cause some of their spells to become more powerful if they are burning, and some spells will be more powerful if their opponents are burning as well. So some of the conditions might be positive depending upon these schools of knowledge you've chosen to play. Each player is going to have an energy board which is going to track that player's maximum energy and also the player's current energy, and a player can never gain more energy than their maximum energy, and a player is going to spend their energy during the round to play cards from their hand, paying the cost of each card that they want to play. Now there's 2 different ways that players are going to win the game. A player can either reduce their opponent's hit points down to 0, or throughout the game, there's also going to be a number of ways to reduce another player's maximum energy, and that player is also going to reduce their maximum energy by reshuffling their discard pile. If this ever reaches 5 or lower, then that player has lost the game and their opponent has won. Another thing I want to talk about are the 2 different modes of play in this. There is a regular mode that is designed to introduce players to the game, get them familiar with the rules and deck construction. There's also going to be some pre-constructed decks included in this mode, so if you don't want to worry about constructing your deck beforehand, you can jump right in and learn the rules and not have to worry about that. If you want to try deck construction, with this one you can choose up to 2 schools of knowledge to pull your cards from. You'll only be able to select 1 elite card from those schools, and the other 19 cards will be made up of common cards in any combination you want from those 2 schools. And you can only include 1 copy of each card in this deck. Then there is a advanced mode that is the true way the game is really designed to be played, and with this mode you're going to have 2 decks you're going to construct. You'll have a battle deck that is comprised of 12 cards initially, and with this deck it is only going to contain common cards. You cannot start the game with any elites in this deck, and again you can choose up to 2 schools of knowledge to construct this deck. Then you're also going to have a library deck that is going to contain 15 cards. It can contain any number of elite cards, and then the rest of the cards will be made up of common cards from those up to 2 schools. During the game, at the end of each round, a player can choose to spend 1 maximum energy to include 3 cards of their choice from their library and shuffle them into their battle deck. You can only include 1 elite card at any time in your battle deck, but this gives you flexibility and being able to augment your deck on the fly, combating your opponent and trying to counter them with whatever cards they have. You can choose to include your elite late in the game as a strategy to determine what your opponent has and how their deck is constructed, or you can jump right in right away and pick up your elites right after at the end of the first turn, getting in and trying to maximize in whatever one you've chosen to include in your deck. And this is a really interesting tactic that provides players with a number of opportunities and ways to grow their deck on the fly, maximizing its capabilities and trying to take advantage of their opponent's weaknesses. The last thing I want to do is take you through a sample round showing you how the phases and steps work. And with this one, this is in the regular mode and not the advanced mode. So the very first step is the draw phase, and during this phase each player is going to draw back up to 7 cards in their hand, and then if a player's deck runs out, then they're going to shuffle up their discard pile, and they also have to reduce their maximum energy by a certain amount depending upon the mode that they've chosen to play. And this is one of the ways that a player's maximum energy is going to be reduced throughout the game. Next, the players are going to handle any start of round effects, such as conditions or abilities or curses, booms, whatever. Anything that has a start of round effect will be resolved at this point. Following that is the battle phase, where the players are going to be playing a card face down in front of them and resolving those effects simultaneously. So let's go ahead and start with my player over here, and he is going to play this card here. His opponent will play this card here. Now that both players have their cards down, we'll go ahead and flip those over and resolve their effects. And each player is also going to have to pay the cost of energy for their card. So my player here is cost 1, and his opponent's is going to cost 4. Then the cards are going to be resolved in the order based on their abilities that they have. And there's a certain order with interrupts happening first, then blocks and evades. Defensive effects will happen next, followed by offensive effects. Then any healing is calculated, and finally damage is calculated and resolved. So with my player here, this is a defensive ability, and it says that I get to remove a spell curse from yourself at the end of the round. So this will trigger at the end of the round. And his opponent played a spell that is going to, the target is going to take 2 damage, which I am the target, so my player will take 2 damage. And he is going to start bleeding for 2 rounds. So I'll add the bleed condition to my effects and add a 2 next to it, signifying that it's going to happen for 2 rounds. At this point, then the players can choose to play another skill card. A player can also choose to pass, but if a player passes, then they cannot do anything else for the rest of the round. So my player is going to play another card, as well as his opponent will do the same. And then again, we will reveal and resolve those cards. And pay their cost, 1, 2, 3, and his opponent's is 4 again. Whoa! All right, and then we'll resolve them. This one here is an offensive and defensive, so it's a deflect magic, and it says if the target opponent is using a spell against you, you block it and deal 3 damage to them. He is using a spell, so this spell will not go off as it is blocked, and I'm going to do 3 damage to him. So he's going to take 3. And then that player up there is out of energy at this point, so he cannot choose to play another skill card. He could if he wanted to, but if you do and you don't have the energy to pay for it, you're going to take a penalty by losing maximum energy, and the card will still not go into effect. So it is not a good idea unless you're trying to kill yourself. My player over here is going to play another card, so again, he'll reveal and pay the cost of 4. And this one is Fierce Thrust, and this is an attack, and it's going to deal 5 damage to target opponent, and it's going to deal 2 additional damage if they aren't using a skill. So the opponent did not play a skill, so he's going to take 7 damage, and so I'm going to add these 3 back in and just remove a 10 instead. So that was a big hit, and both of our players are out of energy now. Any player does not have to spend all their energy if they don't want to. They can hold on to it. At this point, then, we will handle any end-of-round effects, such as conditions or cards that are out there. So the bleeding is going to come into play at this point and deal 2 damage to my player. So I'll remove 2. Then, after all those are resolved, then any durations are going to be reduced by 1. So each condition or curse or boom that's out there that has a timer on it or a duration will be reduced. Then any cards that we've used this round will be discarded to the discard pile that don't have any effects or conditions. Any of those that do will be added to either your or your opponent's effects area, such as curses will go to your opponent and boons will go to yours. And then the last step in the round is that each player is going to gain 8 energy, and this is going to be added to any existing energy you have up to the maximum amount of energy you can hold. So for example, this player had 6 energy and he gained 8 at this point. He would normally have 14, but his maximum energy is at 12, so the most he's going to gain is 12, and any additional energy is lost at that point. Each of our players did use all of it, so they're each going to go with 8, and then we would move into a new round. In the advanced mode, there is one additional step where you can purchase cards from your library by reducing your maximum energy by 1, and then you get to choose 3 cards from your library to add and shuffle into your battle deck. Well, I hope you guys found this video helpful in deciding whether or not you want to back this game on Kickstarter. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them, or swing by the Kickstarter's main page and drop any questions you have there. I'm sure the creator would love to hear from you and is more than happy to answer any questions you have. And if you find these videos helpful, if you like what I do, please consider that like button, subscribe to my channel, as it helps me to continue to grow and produce these videos. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.